All right, welcome back, everybody, to another weekly Course in Miracles teaching session. We're making our way through chapter 2, and this is the section called The Function of the Miracle Worker. Now, it's important to remember that the miracle worker is all of us, and it is daunting. It can feel like that a little bit. Like when we think of the miracle worker, we think of, oh, somebody who's very spiritually advanced, right? And they've begun to heal others, and they have some sort of a special power. Um, but I mean, it is that, but it has to be us because there's only one of us. And so he's speaking to every one of us, and that doesn't mean that you're gonna become like a Protestant pastor and start knocking people over and making them walk from wheelchairs, right? But it is a matter of healing. Healing is our mission here, and um, part of that healing is of realizing where the illness really is. Where are the problems? Where are where is the suffering? And as we learn through atonement, through correction, through inviting the Holy Spirit and gaining a new perspective, we start to realize that all suffering, all the problems only exist within the mind, right? They're not actually coming from the apparently diseased body. They're not actually coming from the war in the Middle East or whatever. All of those things, the diseased body, the war in the Middle East, are all happening within the mind. So that is where our power begins to start slowly move in uh, to ourself, where we realize the power of decision is my own. And so as we do that, we start to realize that our responsibility for healing is not just of Patrick, right? Patrick is only one character among many within my dream. And um, so it's part of it is a very deep mind correction too, right? Because it's not, I mean, at first I thought this was okay, if I see somebody else like my uncle or whatever suffering from cancer, there must be something wrong within his mind, right? That, oh, he hasn't let go of something. So he needs to learn the Course in Miracles and actually forgive, let go of those things, and then he will be healed. No, because that uncle with cancer is happening within my dream. And so it's my one mind that needs to be healed. And that mind that is dreaming up Patrick is also dreaming up my uncle. And so as this begins, it can be unnerving at first, but it will begin to make sense when we realize that we're only one mind. That the healing of myself and the healing of others is the same. And actually, uh, it works better when we give outward because as long as we think that we're Patrick, you can't really give in the same way to Patrick. You can once your consciousness has been rested a little bit out of Patrick and into above the battleground, you realize, okay, wait, Patrick is just another one of the characters within the dream. So I can also give love to Patrick. I can give healing to Patrick because he's just part of the dream. Um, so it works best when you give outward to others, and that's what you'll notice is that your own healing will come best as you give, because that's what we're doing in heaven. That's the truth of what we are as creations of God. We're extensions of love. So we're not kind of going into ourselves and trying to fix all of us, and then we become a good person, and then we can help others. No, we learn that we're already healed when we extend love and realize, whoa, this love that's coming out of me is already perfect. And so I must not be this Patrick figure. I must be the Holy Son of God, right? And that's how our healing kind of is accomplished. All right. So this one's a bit longer, so I'll try to cut the commentary down a little bit. There's a lot of repetition, which is great because it allows all of this to sink into the mind. All right. So, so the function of the miracle worker. Before miracle workers are ready to undertake their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. Otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment, a belief that is already very prevalent. Okay, so starting off, before miracle workers are ready to undertake their role. So this is not um, a linear thing, right? Meaning like, okay, well, I need to first develop this skill, then I'll eventually become a miracle worker. You're already a miracle worker. You're already dreaming up everything that's here, right? And so it's more a before, meaning this is one of the ingredients that we need to put into the mind before the miracle will start to flow through us, right? So it's important to understand the fear of release. And we've gone over this many times. So the fear of release is the fear of being released from our bodies, meaning of real waking up to the fact that I'm not Patrick, that I'm the dreamer of this whole dream, the dreamer of um, every person out there. I'm the dreamer of Justin Trudeau, Klaus Schwab, Patrick Phillips, Jesus, all of it. And so that is a very daunting thing. And it's important to realize the reason why. And the reason why is because of the ego's plan for salvation. So again, these are kind of like it's repetition, but it's really important to understand. Um, so before we split off into all these different human beings, right? We believed we split off first from God. And as we did, we left oneness and a bliss-filled extension of love and communion and creation, and we became this lacking wretch, right? Oh, okay, and now I'm an independent. So we believe it. None of it happened, but we believe it did. And so that first separation is so painful. It induced so much guilt that we destroyed everything that was good within the universe, and we've murdered God, and He's going to come and get His vengeance upon us, right? Which is just another projection of our own guilt. But that's how we experience the ego God. So the ego's plan for salvation is okay. How do I escape this guilt, right? Without actually undoing it. I'm going to split off into all these different people, right? And so at least I can split off the guilt. I'm only one of the bad guys out there that did all this. Look, you can come after Billy Bob or you come after Justin Trudeau, and look, they're the evil ones. They're the ones that caused all the awfulness within the world. Um, and then, but that still wasn't quite enough. And so what we then did was we split off through projection, which is creating the face of innocence, right? So I'm a good Patrick Phillips, right? Who's only doing the right thing. And we project the guilt outward onto others so that we see evil on the outside. So that's why we want wars, we want sickness, we want death, we want destruction, all of that. We want a world where everybody's born to die. We're born like we're born in pain and we die in pain and whatever. And because then you can kind of see, look at the Genesis example, that this world was created by a vengeful kind of sadistic God who cast us out of Eden, right? Okay, so that so the reason we like that, we like to see evil on the outside, is because then we think, okay, well, that's not me, right? I'm not the one who made up all those wars and whatever atrocities that happen to children and whatever we see on the news or on our true crime addictions, right? um, And so that is the ego's plan for salvation. And so what happens when you start to undertake your role as a healer, you have to understand the investment. So when you just if you just heal somebody, right? Oh, you're the Holy Son of God, you're healed. And you release your consciousness from believing that we're bodies. All of a sudden we've moved deeper into the mind, but on that level of mind we realize we created this body to guard ourselves against this deep unbearable guilt that we have with ourselves. And so that's the fear of release. So as we undertake this role, as we start to release and realize that, wait a second, the suffering is not happening in the world, it's all happening within the mind, that can induce some fear at first because we're getting closer to the original wound of the separation, which is based on a lie. So it's good to get there, but um, it's important to know that. So there's a lot of resistance around healing. There's a lot of investment in sickness because when we're sick, I'm just the poor innocent victim, right? Like, look what those awful people did to me, or look at those corporations that took advantage of me and gave me whatever injection or lured me into smoking, right, or whatever. That's the cause of my illness. I'm just poor little me, right? So it's important to understand that investment and then to heal that behind it. Okay. So otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment. So release from the body, like healing might until we heal the guilt that's behind all of it. Remember the oneness and the innocence in everyone through forgiveness. Healing of the body, it can induce even more pain, even more suffering um, and fear because our guilt all of a sudden comes on. We realize, wait a second, maybe I am the source of all of this evil that I see within the world. Um, okay, so this misperception arises in turn from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. That is because of the underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself. So release is imprisonment arises from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. That right, that I'm Patrick, and the destruction of my career, the loss of my house, the injury of my body. Um, you're very wrong if you think that Patrick being tortured and losing his life or dying a slow, lonely, awful death is the worst thing that could happen to me. You're wrong. You have to realize that that is sweet delight compared to the deep agony of the separation, right? So as you go inward, you have to realize first that these things are chosen on purpose, right? They're chosen on purpose because of the deeper pain that we hold within us. So yeah, harm is not limited to the body. That's a misperception. Um, and and this is because of the underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself. So deeper than that, right, is then the split off of the separation, that we've separated and that we've separated from God. We've become this lacking uh, wretch of a creature, right, that is burdened with guilt and believes that God, this split off part from us, this ego God, the ego God that rules this world, that creates a world that's a hellscape that we see with our eyes. And that guy is going to come and get us, right? So that's a deeper level of the pain. So that's the underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself because that guy isn't really God. It's not. Um, and we believe that it's out to get us, and that could show up through the government coming to get us, our parents coming to get us, our neighbor or boss or whatever. It's all manifestations of the ego God. None of these errors are really meaningful because the truth is that we're one and that we never left home, that we've never left our original state of innocence. Um, because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. So even though as we go deeper, it feels like we're getting closer to the truth, and it's scary as hell and it looks awful. But the truth is those aren't really real. And so that's why going deeper into the pain is so healing, because once you get a good look at it, the love is right on the other side. And we see that it's a love. It is essential to remember that only the mind can create, and that correction belongs at the thought level, right? We can't solve any problems, any diseases, any wars by doing something within the world. It can only happen within the mind. You can, otherwise, you're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Right? The suffering is always within the mind. To amplify an earlier statement, spirit is already perfect and therefore does not require correction. The body does not exist except as a learning device for the mind. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it cannot create. It is obvious then that inducing the mind to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability that is truly meaningful. So here's where it's super helpful to start to understand that Patrick is not the one on this healing journey, right? Patrick is hopeless. He is a learning device, meaning that this Patrick character is not going to become a guru. He's not going to become a saint or whatever. That doesn't happen. I will, right? But not really a saint in that sense of a separate person who's a holy person within the world. But we'll begin to remember who we really are. But it won't happen as Patrick. Patrick is only something that is within the dream as something to be forgiven, right? And so that's a very helpful understanding. So Patrick will never be the miracle worker. That is not never the case. And even if it seems to come through that, that is an attack thought. Miracles only come through the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit is us. So what the real miracle is us changing our identification of what we really are. And so as we begin to practice miracles, we realize that, whoa, that's definitely not coming from this Patrick character, right? He has, there's, it's coming from a much deeper, much more powerful place. And that's really us. So it's not the Holy Spirit, some guy in the sky that's not me that I'm asking for help from. As we ask for the help, as he heals our mind, we realize, whoa, this is actually me. Not Patrick, but me. Okay. So magic is the mindless or miscreative use of mind. Physical medications are forms of spells, but if you are afraid to use the mind to heal, you should not attempt to do so. The very fact that you are afraid makes your mind vulnerable to miscreation. You are therefore likely to misunderstand any healing that might occur. And because egocentricity and fear usually occur together, you may be unable to accept the real source of the healing. Right. So if we think that Patrick's the one that's doing this healing or whatever, and we just pray to God and then somebody's healed of cancer, boom, you're like, whoa, I must be highly favored by God, right? I must be a special person that is like must be really holy, right? This Patrick character is kind of good, right? So that's what will happen when you're kind of on that level, right? And like, no. Patrick is still an attack thought that needs to be forgiven. But the other part of it too is that the use of magic. So the use of magic is not just pills used to treat a disease, but it's use of anything within the world to solve any problem, right? Magic is going to work to pay the bills. Magic is eating food to assuage your hunger. It is raising your kids. But it's important to understand the difference. So this is where the level confusion kind of comes in. So while taking an Advil might take away the headache, as you practice sitting in the pain and you realize, where is this headache really coming from? Where is the suffering behind it? What's really the source of this headache? Um, it doesn't mean that Advil won't work or that it's bad to take Advil. Uh, but as we realize that this, as you sit in the suffering, it actually goes deeper. You move to the deeper layers and you realize this headache is not just a headache. There is some deep lack within myself. There's a despair over living in a world where we can have headaches. There's a feeling of powerlessness that goes beyond just a throbbing in my head, right? So as you sit with the headache, and you realize there's some deep crap behind the headache, and it's not just a headache, right? So you can take that Advil, but it's coming back in some form or another. And what you realize is that the headache is not the source of the pain. There is a deeper suffering, and the headache is just a manifestation showing up there. And so there's not like, oh, I'm a Course in Miracles follower, I never take Advil, whatever. No, take the Advil, but don't think that that's going to solve your suffering. Don't think that that's going to bring you to the peace and the bliss and the joy that is your rightful inheritance, right? So our real healing is not just of living a life like Patrick, who doesn't get headaches. That's not healing. Our real healing is remembering we're the Holy Son of God, that we're always one, that we're eternal, that we're always giving, and we're always loving, and that's the deepest level of healing, right? And so that requires forgiveness, and then the headaches, yeah, disappear. But just hoping for a life as a human being without headaches is not. That's asking for far, far, far too late. Okay. Um, Okay, so under these conditions, it is safer for you to rely temporarily on physical healing devices. So you can do both, right? So practice forgiveness, deepen your understanding, and you can still do the magic. You can still go to work to pay the bills. You can still eat. You can still take your pills for your medications. Just don't think that it's going to relieve your suffering. It might relieve a symptom, but it won't take away your suffering, which comes from believing that you're human. Um, okay, so under these conditions, it is safer for you to rely temporarily on physical healing devices because you cannot misperceive them as your own creations, right? So at the very least, you're not going to think that you're a miracle worker as Patrick, right? That Patrick is a holy man and must be doing, some holy things. And, that often happens with some people who perform miracles as feats and things like that. That they must be highly favored from God or whatever. It's like, no, it comes from a deeper place. It doesn't come from any human being. As long as your sense of vulnerability persists, you should not attempt to perform miracles. Um, yeah. So as long as you think that it's coming from yourself as a human, um, and a good key to that is the feeling that you have within you, right? So if you see, like, as part of this course is starting to learn the call for love, right? We need to see the call for healing in our brothers, in everything that we see within the world. That is a part of this course. But if it's coming from like, oh my God, you have cancer, we need to do something about that. Oh my God, I'm going to pray. I'm going to do a Course in Miracles. We need to fix that cancer. We can't have you having cancer. You know what I mean? So that if you're in that state of mind, there's a sense of vulnerability, right? That this is something that, oh my God, we need to heal this. It needs to go. Come on, God, let's fix this. Snap on it. That's not a healing state of mind because it's making the error real. So real miracles come from deep knowing that we're invulnerable. We're spirit. We're not these bodies. And so the healing is needs to come from a place of peace, right? Of reassuring others, and sending that love and invulnerability and eternalness of remembering who we really are. That's the healing. And then the manifestations of that will show up after. But that's not really the work of healing. The work of healing is forgiveness, and seeing ourselves as innocent spirit. Okay. I've already said that miracles are expressions of miracle mindedness, and miracle mindedness means right mindedness, remembering who we are. The right minded neither exalts nor depreciate the mind of the miracle worker or the miracle receiver. However, as a correction, the miracle need not await the right mindedness of the receiver. In fact, its purpose is to restore him to his right mind. It is essential, however, that the miracle worker be in his right mind, however briefly, or he will be unable to reestablish right-mindedness in someone else. So as we send love, as we send healing to others, um, um, we it comes from our right mind, right? And so part of it seems like he's kind of vacillating, like you need to be prepared, you need to be in the right state of mind in order to do this. But it and then he's also saying, well, wait a second, you don't really need to be in the right state of mind. You need to depend on me, right? And so it's a bit confusing there because the part of us that the Holy Spirit is not a separate person. It's not a guy in the sky who's going to come and help you as a separate entity. It is you. And so when you start to learn and experience the Holy Spirit, which is right-mindedness, it's the eyes of peace, it's the eyes of love, the spiritual eye, as it was called before in the Course. That part of us is always there, right? It's unchanging. And so as we learn that, as we call upon it, as we invoke it, and then experience it as ourselves, we can remember that there's a part of our mind that always remembers that we're innocent, that remembers that we're one with God, that we're that sickness, disease, war, problems of any kind are impossible, right? And so when he's saying we need to prepare it, it's more that we need to remember that part of our mind. It's not that I need to do a bunch of work and a bunch of spiritual work, and then eventually I'll be able to do um, practice miracles. It's more that we need to remember that there's a part of us that's always ready, that's always been ready 100% of the time. And it's always there, even when we think it's not, even when we think we're not connected to those. The healer who relies on his own readiness, on Patrick's readiness, is endangering his understanding. You are perfectly safe as long as you are completely unconcerned about your readiness, about Patrick's readiness, but maintain a consistent trust in mine. So here, he's speaking kind of as Jesus. It's not in his readiness as Jesus, the guy who lived 2,000 years ago, or a separate person that you pray to. He's talking about the one mind. He's talking about the Holy Spirit that he has fully embodied now, right? Because he's remembered who he really is, and there's only one of us. And so some people like the practice of kind of invoking Jesus and asking for him for help, and that's fine too, as long as you understand that we're one. And so this mind needs to come eventually through your own eyes, and so not as a separate one, but as joined. So if your miracle working inclinations are not functioning properly, it is always because fear has intruded on your right-mindedness and has turned it upside down. So when we've crept back into the separate mind, right? Fear is always coming from separation, right? Because you need something to be afraid of, right? So all forms of not right-mindedness are the result of refusal to accept the atonement for yourself, the correction of your mind to remember who you are. If you do not accept it, if you do accept it, you are in a position to recognize that those who need healing are simply those who have not realized that right-mindedness, remembering who we are, is healing, right? That is the healing. It's not, we're not praying for um, the mirror, right? We're like the reflection of the healing. The real healing is of remembering that we're one with God, that we're eternal, that we're peace, that we're ever loving, that we're ever giving. That's our true nature. Um, and then that's we're actually already healed, and then the reflections are just butter on the cake, or butter, or icing on the cake. Sorry. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. This means that you recognize that mind is the only creative level, and that its errors are healed by the atonement. So again, remember, uh, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker. When we're giving miracles to others, we're realizing, wait a second, your illness, your problem, your apparent sins, or whatever it might be, is happening within my mind, right? This is one mind. It's always my mind. That's why to perform a miracle or to give a miracle to another, you need to realize, wait a second, there's something wrong going on in my mind, but I'm seeing you as suffering cancer. So this is a call for love to my own mind. There's something disordered in my mind that I'm seeing you as this suffering, weak uh, victim, right? So when we're calling on the Holy Spirit, help me to see this brother and to know him as I know myself, right? Help me to see him as he truly is, right? So we're asking for healing. Really, we're not asking for healing of them. We're asking for healing of our mind that is seeing them as a victim, that is seeing them as sick, right? So it becomes a call. And then we realize, okay, wait, this apparent person is something that I'm lacking love within my own mind. There's some place within my mind, which is the whole world, that I'm failing to send love, right? And then we can see that all illness, all sin, all atrocities or whatever are a call to love, because there's just some place where I've blocked love. I've stopped sending love there, right? And so then we realize as we begin to send love, that really becomes a miracle. And when we realize that everything that's happening within the world is happening within my own mind. Once you accept this, your mind can only heal. Yeah, once we've accepted that mind is the only creative level, only, and it's always my mind. And it's everybody's mind, but it always is experienced as mine because we're one, right? So it's not going to be like Justin Trudeau's mind has a lot of work to do. He really needs some healing, and he better get to work on them. It's like, no, no, no. It is the responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. Meaning, I'm seeing this person as a corrupt politician or whatever it might be, or a troubled individual, and so it's I need atonement. I'm the one in need right here, right? Because I'm not seeing him as the Christ. I'm not seeing him as eternal, as untouchable, as imperturbable, as always loving, always giving. Like that's the truth of him. So I'm the one that's sick. So that's what it means to accept the atonement for myself. Okay. So by denying your mind, okay, once you accept this, your mind can only heal, because then we realize everything we see within the world is a call for us to heal, a call for us to love. By denying your mind any destructive potential and reinstating its purely constructive powers, meaning extending love, you place yourself in a position to undo the level confusion of others, right? It then begins to heal them, because this one mind that is then seeing that other person is healed is the same mind that's dreaming up them. So you are immediately healing a mind because we're all one mind. Um, This message you then give to them is the truth that their minds are similarly constructed, meaning loving, peaceful, innocent, and one with me and with God. And their miscreations cannot hurt them, they're merely illusions. So, by affirming this, you release the mind from over evaluating its own learning device, meaning Patrick, um, and you restore the mind to its true position as the learner, right? So, yeah, so when I'm seeing somebody else, it's not like, oh, I'm Patrick. I've done the Course in Miracles for, 30 years. I'm healed. I'm doing great. And this is my last lifetime and I'm gonna be enlightened pretty soon or whatever. So I can then go and give you healing, right? That's what the ego would like to see what it is, but it's no. If I'm seeing anybody as unhealed, I'm unhealed, right? So if you can adopt this mindset, it is humbling. It's humbling in a very powerful uh, way because it's not that I've become an enlightened individual and not become so holy that I can now do healing to others. Like, no, Patrick is always and always will be a very troubled uh, soul as much as anybody else in the world. Um, that is not the healing. And what you realize too is when you see anybody else suffering, anybody else who has learning to do, anybody else who is not spiritually advanced or whatever. That's you, you know. That's the call for love. So the mind that's healing, the mind that's sending love, is not Patrick. You're not going to become some holy man. Um, it is the Holy Spirit that is dreaming up the whole world. And so when you're going out there and seeming to heal other people, you're not. You're healing yourself, right? um, because it's all happening within the one mind. Okay. Um, it should be emphasized again that the body does not learn any more than it creates. So Patrick is not the one learning. Patrick's not the one forgiving. Patrick's not the one healing. As a learning device, it merely follows the learner. It merely follows the mind. But if it is falsely endowed with self-initiative, right, because Patrick is the one doing this, it becomes a serious obstruction to the very learning it should facilitate, right? Um, so yeah, I kind of talked about that before. Believing that Patrick's the one becoming holy, that Patrick's the one becoming healing and or doing teaching or whatever. It's not that. Patrick is only here to be forgiven. That's it. That's all he'll ever be. Um, only the mind is capable of illumination, right? The mind that is behind all of us. Spirit is already illuminated, and the body in itself is too dense to shine forth light. It blocks light. Patrick is a block to light. It's an attack thought on God, right? So, and it always will be. Every single body that you see out there is an attack thought. Not to say that people behind them, right? The mind behind them is, but it can be helpful. There are no holy bodies. Um, the mind, however, can bring its illumination to the body by recognizing that it is not the learner, and it is therefore unamenable to learning. Patrick is hopeless, hopeless, hopeless. Right? You'll probably always have a drinking problem or whatever. So, and that's okay. That's not an impediment at all to learning this course. Um, the body is, however, easily brought into alignment with a mind that has learned to look beyond it toward the light. So yeah, our body eventually will kind of start to follow and the mind will start to shine through a little bit, but it's not, as long as it's a body, it's a declaration that we're not one. Okay. Corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit, remembering that we are spirit, that we're not we're the dreamer. And the turning away from the belief in physical sight, that anything within this world means anything. This often entails fear because you are afraid of what your spiritual sight will show you. Remember those deeper layers, this belief that we've separated from all that was good in the world and we're this guilty wretch. Okay. I said before that the Holy Spirit cannot see error. It's the part of us that remembers that we're one with God. It is capable only of looking beyond it to the defense of atonement. There's no doubt that this may produce discomfort, yet the discomfort is not the final outcome of the perception. When the Holy Spirit, the spiritual eye, is permitted to look upon the defilement of the altar, right? The mind that believes that it's separate, that it became Patrick and was born into this world and whatnot. When the Holy Spirit is permitted to look into our troubled, separate mind that believes that it's guilty, he also looks immediately towards the atonement. Nothing he perceives, nothing this our spiritual eye perceives, can induce fear. Everything that results from spiritual awareness is merely channelized toward correction. Discomfort is aroused only to bring the need for correction into awareness. Okay, so this kind of goes through the process a little, right? So if we see something, some disease, we see some problem in ourselves or others, what do? We go to the forgiveness process, right? Because the forgiveness and the healing process are really one. We go inward and then you go to the feeling. Sit with the feeling. And like when you think of this disease or whatever that you might have, think of you just sit with it and go sit in the pain, allow it to be there, allow the discomfort to be there, and realize, okay, wait a second, any discomfort that we have is a call for healing, it's a call for love. And that's where we can then invite the Holy Spirit in to heal this pain. And as we start to sit with it, we realize, we allow it to soak, go deeper and deeper into it, and realize the guilt that's behind it, the embarrassment of that disease, the anger of the people who are supposed to be helping you and they're not, right? The people who maybe caused this disease within you. And allow it to fester a little bit, right? Because it's bringing you closer into the mind. You realize, okay, wait a second, then ask yourself, where is this problem really happening? And we realize that any form of suffering, when you sit with it long enough, brings us back into the defilement of the altar, right? The mind that is separate, because there's a deeper layers of pain that caused us to want these small problems, right? Even if they seem like major ones, like a car accident or bankruptcy or heart attack or whatever, they feel like orgasmic compared to the deep, horrifying pain of separation within our mind, right? So that's why when we sit with them, it can be very disconcerting as we do this process, because it's going to invite you deeper to the source of the real. But as you sit with it, and we invite the Holy Spirit in, He is the part of our mind that remembers that none of this is true. Oh, we were never left heaven. We are fully innocent, and and that's what brings the correction. And the deeper you can go into the pain, and then invite the healing, the deeper, the more guilt you'll let go, and the deeper the healing will be, and the more it will accelerate. So the discomfort, when we realize any disturbance within us is a call for correction, it's a call for the miracle, it is a call for healing. And so when we can realize that, look out to the world and find anything that bothers you, and then realize, okay, where's the real problem? Where's this bothering? Sit with the bothering, allow it to grow, and you realize, wait a second, the problem isn't really out there. The problem is within my mind. That and so that's where it can be healed, because our mind is the one that's caused it. As you heal this disturbance that seems to be coming from a war, you have as the dreamer, you have the ability to heal that war. But it's going to mean doing a lot of forgiveness work that's caused you to want to see a war within the world, right? So that can take some time until we realize that there is no time. Okay. So as we do this with the Holy Spirit, as we sit in the pain and invite the Holy Spirit in, um, the discomfort is channelized toward correction. You can feel it just start to move through you to dissolve. And as we look on it, which is very scary to do on our own, but as we do it with help, we can then see that none of it was really true, and we can start to see past it. You can start to see light at the end of the tunnel, and then you can get excited about going into the pain because you're like, oh, this is the undoing of it, right? And then the pain, you start to move through it faster and faster, and you can move through deeper and deeper parts of the pain until you remember who you really are, right? And so that's the power of it. The pain is our block to love. And so once we remove the block, the love just begins to flow. And that's our healing. The fear of healing arises in the end from an unwillingness to accept unequivocally that healing is necessary. And so we do this by trying to cover up the pain, right? By having a drink, by going to work, trying to solve your problems with magic, taking your pill. There's nothing wrong with taking the pill. We all do those things as human beings, right? But when we can start to recognize that anything we do within the world to try to make ourselves feel better is trying to avoid the pain of separation, right? Oh, I can just get my life in a certain way or whatever, or if I breathe, I will feel better. But as we realize that all of those are ways of trying to avoid the pain, then they all of them become opportunities for forgiveness, to go into it and sit in it and invite the healing rather than trying to cover it up and trying to avoid it or put off the pain. If I can just work and make up enough money, I won't have to feel this pain that comes and lack that seems to come from my finances, but really isn't. So pain and lack of separation. So if you could just still go to work, still earn some money, but then stop believing in it. Sit in it. Sit in the lack. And then realize that, wait a second, this desire for money is something that needs to be healed, right? And then you can go to work with much more ease, right? Because you won't care. You won't think that that's going to solve your problems. Like, oh my God, I need to work. I need to please my boss. I need to do all that stuff, right? That's what keeps you, because you think that that's going to be what heals this pain. It won't, never will. So as we can just, you can do both at the same time, practice magic as we all do, but also sit in the pain, and what you'll eventually realize that the pain that comes from the spiritual healing, it's just the joy and the peace, like it just far outweighs anything you can do. Okay. What the physical eye sees, right? So work, money, food, is never corrective. So none of the things we do within the world ever heal problems. um, Nor can error be corrected by any device that can be seen physically. Yeah, so work, breathing, drinking water, um, uh, solving relationships by talking to people, voting. None of them will ever win. None of them will heal this deep pain that's within our mind. As long as you believe in what your physical sight tells you, your attempts at correction will be misdirected, right? So when we see a brother suffering with cancer, as we develop this, we realize, wait a second, we stop seeing a brother suffering from cancer. We just see a brother suffering, right? And then, and we realize, wait a second, I can send love and remind them of who they really are. And that healing will come. And then the cancer is just a side note, but what we're doing is really relieving suffering. The real vision is obscured because you cannot endure to see what your own defiled altar, our own uncorrected mind, our own pain and grievances that we still cherish and hold on to within our mind, which is causing us to see suffering on the outside. But since the altar, our mind, has been defiled, meaning it's been love and oneness has been replaced with separation, sin, guilt, fear. Your state becomes doubly dangerous unless it is perceived, unless we can look at it. Instead of looking out, go inward and realize, whoa, there's something grievously wrong within my mind that I need healing, right? Stop looking on the outside. It's myself that needs the healing, not you. Healing is an ability that developed after the separation, before which it was unnecessary, right? There's no healing in heaven, right? There's nothing to heal. Like all aspects of the belief in space and time, it is temporary. However, as long as time persists, healing is needed as a means of protection, right? And it's like forgiveness. It is um, uh, an illusion, but one that will help us get out of here. This is because healing rests on charity, and charity is a way of perceiving the perfection of another, even if you cannot perceive it in yourself. So charity is practicing forgiveness and seeing the Christ in others, right? Seeing them as they truly are, which and sometimes, yeah, we can't see it within ourselves. And so charity is kind of not the full experience of heaven, but it's something close. Charity is really a weaker reflection of a much more powerful love encompassment that is far beyond any form of charity you can conceive as yet. Charity is essential to right-mindedness in the limited sense in which it can now be attained. So that's kind of like sending love to others, seeing the Christ in others, um, because as long as you're seeing them as other, it's not, you can't realize that you're actually sending it to yourself. Not in the isolated sense, but you're not seeing the oneness yet. You're still seeing others, right? Which is that healing happens later. Later in the process, we eventually realize there are no others, but not in the lonely sense. There are no others, meaning we're all one. And so we cease to experience other beings. Charity is a way of looking at another as if he had already gone far beyond his actual accomplishments in time, right? So remembering that they are the Christ, that they are the Holy Son of God, the one that has the ability to heal you. Since his own thinking is faulty, he cannot see the atonement for himself, or he would have no need of charity. So when we see somebody as calling for love, right? That's kind of a step in the right direction until we realize that they are love. um, uh, so it's charity isn't often spoken of in the course, I guess. It's kind of one of the few sections that I've kind of read it, but it's kind of like a stepping stone along the path of forgiveness and eventually extending love. The charity that is accorded him is both an acknowledgement that he needs help and a recognition that he will accept it. Both of these perceptions clearly imply their dependence on time, making it apparent that charity still lies within the limitations of this world. So as you see somebody who needs healing, right, and then your heart kind of goes out to them, so then you kind of send that and you recognize that it's a call for love. This is, yeah, it's still something that happens within time, just like the miracle, just like forgiveness. It's just kind of a different take on it a little bit. The miracle, as an expression of charity, can only shorten it, meaning shorten time. It must be understood, however, that whenever you offer a miracle to another, you are shortening the suffering of both of you. This corrects retroactively in the past as well as progressively in the future. So future of this lifetime, future of other lifetimes. It brings us closer in time, but time is just it brings us closer in different ways because it shortens, it will shrink the sense of separation, that this is a separate person from me. but it'll also shrink time because in the future, in the seeming future, we will eventually realize that we're all one. And so it shortens the amount of lessons, the lifetimes, the karma, all of that is required for us to eventually learn that and to give up this investment in these separate selves that seem to have drama with our neighbor. um, so as we practice the miracle, you'll feel closer to that other. It doesn't matter whether you see it or you say anything or you go to Christmas parties together. You will know on a deep level that you're closer to them. And eventually that we need to feel that towards everybody. And eventually when that happens, time will disappear. But you can feel time starting to disappear as you sense closeness with others. Any sense of separation is a forgiveness lesson that needs to come on. Eventually, when you feel one with everyone, or you incrementally feel closer, you'll sense time speeding up and eventually starting to feel unreal. Because time is only there for us to learn our lessons and to remember that we're one with God and one with everyone. And so as we forgive, as we move closer, as we join with others and remember that they're actually us in disguise, and that they are holy and innocent, time starts to shrink. And that's just the way it works. Because time is there just to separate us from oneness. So it eventually disappears as we forget. All right. So that's quite a bit. Um, but I'll open it up if anybody has questions. If not, I'll move on to our meditation. All right. So this one's from later on in the course. So there you have your kind of week reflection that you do every week, which is what is a miracle? And then it will be lesson 345 is kind of the prayer. Um, I think he goes over most of this pretty well. But hopefully this will be kind of an opportunity for us to practice the miracle, practice giving, practice recognizing problems, people, relationships, atrocities, anything that bothers us in the world. Just recognize the call for a miracle. And as we practice that, um, this is kind of an invitation to remember that we're actually healing ourselves because that person is us. And so we will feel it as they are healed. And and that energy just keeps growing and extending and will heal us as well. Okay. Mm,
Welcome to this whole instant now, an instant to stop and remember. Remember who and what you truly are, beyond the matrix of fear, lack, and limitation. All that seems to limit you in this world is only an illusion that demands your continued belief and attention in order to have any power over you. Now is your opportunity to let go of whatever stands in the way of your complete awareness of your true and original self. Sit back with your spine upright. Get comfortable and take a deep, slow breath. And as you exhale, release both past and future. Release both memory and imagination, and become fully present in the now. And let's begin. contemplation with which we begin today's practice is this: what is a miracle? A miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. It is a change in the mind that occurs when we choose to see things differently. When we choose to see the world through the eyes of love and forgiveness, we experience a shift in consciousness, which can bring healing, peace, and a sense of divine connection. Miracles are seen as natural expressions of love, and they occur when we align our thoughts with the will of God. A miracle is a correction. It does not create nor really change at all. It merely looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it sees is false. It undoes error, but does not attempt to go beyond perception nor exceed the function of forgiveness. A miracle contains the gift of grace, for it is given and received as one, and thus it illustrates the law of truth the world does not obey, because it fails entirely to understand its ways. A miracle inverts perception, which was upside down before, and thus it ends the strange distortions that were manifest. Now is perception open to the truth. Now is forgiveness seen as justified. Forgiveness is the home of miracles. The eyes of Christ deliver them to all they look upon in mercy and in love. Perception stands corrected in His sight, and what was meant to curse has come to bless. The miracle is taken first on faith, because to ask for it implies the mind has been made ready to conceive of what it cannot see and does not understand. Yet faith will bring its witnesses to show that what it rested on is really there, and thus the miracle will justify your faith in it and show it rested on a world more real than what you saw before, a world redeemed from what you thought you saw. Miracles fall like drops of healing rain from heaven on a dry and dusty world where starved and thirsty creatures came to die. Now they have water. Now the world is green, and everywhere the signs of life spring up to show that what is born can never die. For what has life has immortality. And now, take the next minute or so to contemplate the miracle and allow your mind to relate the ideas you heard to your everyday decisions, thoughts, beliefs, actions, and the way you perceive yourself and others. Take the next minute or so to do this now. And now, take one more deep, slow, and full breath in. And as you exhale slowly, let your mind and body relax as you open your awareness to the idea with which we practice today. I offer only miracles today, for I would have them be returned to me. Infinite Creator, a miracle reflects your gifts to me, the Holy One whom you created. And every one I give returns to me again, reminding me the law of love is universal. Even here, it takes a form which can be recognized and seen to work. The miracles I give are given back in just the form that I need to help me with the problems I perceive. My Creator, in heaven, it is different, for there are no needs. But here on earth, the miracle is closer to your gifts than any other gift which I can give. Then let me give this gift alone today, which, born of true forgiveness, lights the way that I must travel to remember you. Peace to all seeking hearts today. The light has come to offer miracles to bless the tired world. It will find rest today, for we will offer what we have received. To offer a miracle to anyone is simply to see them aright, to see them without the judgment that comes from the mind of the dream character self. To offer the miracle is to change the lens of fear, which shows you that you are separate from the world around you, to the lens of love that reveals the underlying unity behind all appearances. The very instant that you offer the miracle to anyone, you receive it for yourself. In fact, you receive it first. To see the innocence and holiness in anything, it must first arise within your consciousness. This is the beauty of the law of love. You cannot help but to receive the love you give.
I'm going to leave it at that, but I will end it just with the prayer that meditation is based on lesson 345. Father, a miracle reflects your gifts to me, your Son, and every one I give returns to me, reminding me the law of love is universal. Even here, it takes a form which can be recognized and seen to work. The miracles I give are given back in just the form I need to help me with the problems I perceive. Father, in heaven, it is different, for there are no needs. But here on earth, the miracle is closer to your gifts than any other gift that I can give. Then let me give this gift alone today, with the way that I must travel to remember you. I offer only miracles today, for I would have them be returned to me. All right. Hopefully a beautiful meditation there, where you can kind of practice the giving. It's forgiving, right? The giving of miracles is also the forgiveness. It is seeing them as whole, as lacking nothing, as the holy, innocent Son of God. That's the forgiveness process, and it's also the healing process, right? That's why healing is not like, oh my God, you have cancer, we need to pray that away. It is, no, you are the holy Son of God. You are innocent. You are lacking nothing. You are spirit. And when you know that and see it and know it on a deep level, that's powerful. That shifts the dream. It allows them to let go of the belief that they're that body that seems to have cancer, or that they ever could be a body at all, right? It's not the desire for a healthy body. It is the remembrance that of who we really are. That's the deepest level of healing. And they go hand in hand. But that's the miracle. And so the more we practice it, the more we can share it and spread it and extend love. All right. So, if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free. Not to.
Just that getting to that place of knowing the same way that we know that 2 times 2 is 4, we don't have to think about it anymore. I'm certainly not anywhere close to that, but
Yeah.
just not having to remember that 2 times 2 is 4
Mm-hmm.
and not needing to fix anything that says it's otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't need to challenge it, right? It's not like there's no argument, right? You kind of, it's on the feeling level. Yeah. And comes with the practice, I guess. Like
Hope
writing.
so.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. And I'll send the recording here.